What is up guys, my name is Regardt and I'm coming to you with another NAG video review. In this week's episode I'm taking a look at what could possibly be my next phone, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, it's a Huawei. Yes, it's a new Mate 20 Pro and it's all the rage at the moment. Is it worth the investment? Well, let's take a look. There's no doubt that 2018 has been a great year for smartphone fans, and most recently it's culminated in that very expensive plus 30,000 Rand iPhone that Apple recently announced. Fortunately, the Mate 20 Pro isn't quite as expensive, but it does offer you a lot of bang for your buck. What also offers you a lot of bang for your buck is Corsair's new range of keyboards. Look at this beautiful thing. I've been playing with this for the last few days, playing some PUBG and a lot of other fun games, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It's got some great RGB lighting. Those mechanical keys are pretty impressive, but the thing that makes this keyboard so impressive is those rise up replaceable keys around the W, A, S and D key set. It's well worth checking out. For more information on this awesome keyboard and for an upcoming review in NAG, check out nag.co.za. I'll be the first to admit that Huawei devices have never really appealed to me. Even the P20 Pro that launched earlier this year, which was a great device on paper and by all accounts in hand, never really appealed to me as a user, and it wasn't quite the device that I wanted to upgrade to. But it wasn't until I met the Mate 20 Pro that my perceptions about the brand has changed quite a bit. Now, the Mate 20 Pro is the latest flagship from the company, retailing for about 19,000 Rand. On contract, you can probably get away with it for about 800 Rand a month, which should be about a 400 Rand premium on your existing contract. Now, it's not just the specifications that make this phone great. It feels amazing in hand. It's not as slippery as some of the other devices that I've used to date. While its hardware spec list certainly puts it top of its class, there is a few other things about this phone that I really like. Now, before we get into the specifications list, let me point those out to you now. Right out of the box, I was quite excited that this one came preloaded with Android 9 Pie, and that is the latest version of Android with some pretty nice features as an upgrade from the previous versions. Now, the thing that you'll notice at first glance is certainly that beautiful 4.6-inch OLED screen, running at 3120 by 1440 pixels. It's a beautiful sight to behold, and even in bright sunlight conditions, the screen will offer plenty of brightness for you to use your phone without too much eye strain. Sitting at the heart of the Mate 20 Pro is that Huawei-made Kirin 980 processor, which by all accounts is a beast. In benchmarks, it performs pretty well, and Huawei has included some pretty nice AI capabilities, but more on that when we chat about the camera. Also included with the Mate 20 Pro is 6GB of RAM, and all models come with a base of 128GB of storage space, which certainly is enough for most users. Even I have trouble filling 128GB with a lot of photographs these days. If you want to upgrade your storage, you'll certainly be able to do so, but there's a caveat. Huawei has introduced their own nano SD technology, and the cards aren't as readily available yet. I would have much rather seen a micro SD card included, but so be it. It's one of the downsides of the Mate 20 Pro. Looking at the back of the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, you'll see that 3-camera cluster with that flash sitting on the right hand side. Now, this is a thing that most people will be talking about without a doubt. The difference between this camera cluster and the one that you found on the P20 Pro earlier this year is that Huawei made away with the black and white sensor. They've now replaced it with a 20 megapixel wide angle sensor, and this thing is pretty cool. There's also a 40 megapixel 27mm wide angle sensor, as well as an 8 megapixel 80mm telephoto sensor, and that Kirin processor will be able to intelligently switch between these depending on what you are shooting. You can obviously switch that feature off as well. For video shooters like myself, I was happy with the 2160 at 30 frames per second video resolution. It's not quite high in 4K, but it will do for most social media users. What I really found interesting was that 960 frames per second mode on the 720p setting, which again for social media usage will allow you to produce some pretty cool content. You'll also be able to shoot at 60 frames a second at 1080p should you wish to do so. And for those of you who like the front-facing shooter, you'll be glad to hear that the Mate 20 Pro comes with a 24 megapixel autofocus camera, which is pretty good for selfies, I must admit. A feature that we've been seeing on many smartphones these days is an IP68 rating. Yes, that means that the Mate 20 Pro is both water and dust resistant, and you can even dunk it in the water for a little bit. I wouldn't recommend diving with it. For that, you can get an external pouch from Huawei. Then the last feature on this spec sheet that's really exciting is that beautiful 4200 milliamp hour battery. Yes, this thing has got enough juice to last you more than a day, and I find it difficult to drain this thing in 24 hours. My battery usage over the last 2 weeks has been about a day and a half, and I use the screen quite a lot, especially initially when you're trying to figure out all the features of the phone. So I've been finding myself looking at the screen a lot, and the battery still lasts about a day and a half. It's pretty impressive. In terms of connectivity, it's got the usual fare of NFC, Bluetooth, and wireless technologies. But the one thing that I found pretty cool was the inclusion of an IR blaster. So if you still have a need for that, or you like messing around, get yourself an IR app, run it on the Mate 20 Pro, and you'll be able to switch channels on your TV or play pranks on people. It's a pretty cool feature to have. So in terms of specifications, the Mate 20 Pro has it all. At about 19,000 Rand, it's certainly not the cheapest phone and sits it squarely with its competitors in the Samsung range. So we can see that the Mate 20 Pro is great in specifications on all fronts, but how does it work in everyday usage scenario? Well, I must be honest with you, I've been very impressed. Looking at the screen first and foremost, the curved screen, similar to what you find on the Samsung models, really is a game changer in terms of how you perceive the screen size to be. Yes, it's not a unique feature to this phone, but the implementation of Huawei's Mate 20 Pro certainly is a lot more easy on the eye than I've seen with some of the other devices on the market. Of course, the notch is there, and again, it's not as big as some of its competitors, but you can switch it off within software to make it a straight black line if you so wish. You won't lose any of the real estate. The notifications will still stay in its place. To be honest, the notch isn't such a bad thing, and it gives me more real estate. Regardless of the notch, it's still nice to see top to end screen on the smartphone, and it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, you might ask yourself, where's the fingerprint scanner? I mean, there's nothing at the back and there's nothing at the front, not even on the sides, on the buttons. Now, interestingly enough, Huawei is one of the first companies to introduce in-screen fingerprint reader. And it's pretty cool, although not as accurate as a physical button. It works most of the time. It might be a little bit slower, but it works pretty well. The Mate 20 Pro also includes face scanning, which works slightly quicker than that in-screen fingerprint reader. Now, making full use of those camera sensors, the Huawei Mate 20 Pro is a great shooter. The AI functionality makes it easy for most amateur shooters just to enhance their images, although I found myself turning that feature off in the first few days. Switching over to the Pro function within the camera app allowed me to control my image much better, and I really like the low light images that this phone can produce. The one thing that was probably the most impressive for me is the macro abilities of that new 20 megapixel wide sensor. Capable of shooting subjects as close as 2.5 centimeters, the Mate 20 Pro is one of the most fun macro cameras that I've used to date, and the fact that you have it in the palm of your hand at all times, even better. Now, I've spoken about that beautiful 4200 milliamp hour battery, but another feature that Huawei has included that is pretty cool in my opinion is reverse wireless charging. That means you can go into the settings, switch it on, and allow you to charge somebody else's wireless chargeable device very easily. It's not a deal breaker in terms of feature spec, but it's certainly a nice to have. Speakers on the Huawei Mate 20 Pro sits over there, and there's one hidden in the USB-C port. It's pretty loud for a phone, but the USB-C hidden speaker isn't ideally placed. When I play games, I find myself blocking it with my hand quite often and muffling the sound. Obviously, the solution there is to use Bluetooth speakers or Bluetooth headphones, but it's not always ideal. It's not a deal breaker, and I've shifted my hands around a bit, but it's something worth noting. For listening to music and just putting the phone on the table, the speaker is great. Another cool thing you can do with this USB-C connector is connect it to a screen, a mouse, and a keyboard. If you've got the right USB-C adapter, your Mate 20 Pro will essentially turn into a computer. Obviously with basic functionality limited around Android and the Play Store, but it's a great feature to have nonetheless. So considering the high-end specifications of this phone, that beautiful screen, that 4200 milliamp hour battery, what else can we do with it? Of course, gaming, and I've been playing a lot of PUBG on this device with great results. There's even a performance mode within the battery settings allow you to boost the performance a little bit for either gaming or processor intensive tasks like graphic editing or Photoshop Mobile. Of course, I couldn't end off this review without running some benchmarks. I ran Geekbench 4 and Antutu benchmark, and both showed really great results, especially compared to other high-end devices in the market. It's been about a week now that I've been playing with the Mate 20 Pro as my daily device, and I've been really impressed. Photography is spot on, the performance is there, and the screen is absolutely beautiful to look at. Of course, it's hard not to love a high-end specification device with a fancy screen and a big battery. If you've had some hands-on time with this phone or you're thinking about upgrading, leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts. As always, please do hit that like button or that dislike button if you didn't like this video, but do subscribe to the NAG channel. From Regardt and the NAG team, until the next video, ciao ciao.